Welcome back to the conversation. Our next guest is the Director of Community Engagement at Wellspring Living. Please welcome Michelle Graves. Michelle, I know you, like everyone here, spend just a lot of time trying to get the word out about how to provide services for sex trafficking survivors.
Yes.
Tell us more.
So thank you for having us on, for having me on today to talk about Wellspring Living. I love to share about the organization for which I work, which is an amazing organization. We were founded 22 years ago. And we work with victims of sex trafficking. Our mission is to transform the lives of those that are at risk or victims of sexual exploitation.
How so? What's happening at a grassroots level there?
So Wellspring Living, we have located here in Georgia, we have 3 residential programs in which we serve victims of sex trafficking. So we have 2 youth programs and 1 women's program. Our youth, we have a girls residential program. We can house up to 15 girls ages 12 to 17. We have another youth residential program, which is the first of its kind in the state of Georgia. We partnered with First Lady Marty Kemp to open what we call the Receiving Hope Center. And this is for youth, girls, boys, and a growing number of transgender come into our program, ages 12 to 17.
Wow,
it's a
young.
Stable, yes. And
so young.
The most important part about the Receiving Hope Center is that it's a stabilization program. A lot of times youth aren't able to come off the street into a stabilization program. So this is the first of its kind in the state of Georgia where they're able to come directly into a safe, stable housing situation.
And that safe, stable housing is so important, being able to have a safe place to land after law enforcement, after community organizations and advocates like you have helped. Special Agent Jones, I want you to talk about what happens even in what you've seen in investigations in terms of rescuing and then stopping this from happening again, stopping the pimps.
So the biggest thing, is, of course, is the stable, having a stable platform once a victim is identified and getting them the resources and having these advocacy groups. It's huge. We cannot do our job without the advocacy groups just because of the amount of time and resources that they have.
Right.
We were talking before we came out here, and it was like, I don't know every advocacy group, but I know my advocates. I know who to go to and be like, hey, this is the case that I have. This is what I've identified going on with this victim. You know, what resources can we get them? And they're just oh.
And what kind of resources do you often find, just in the cases you have identified? They need housing, they need therapy, I have to imagine.
Housing, therapy, just everyday needs, but things that we just take for granted. You know, a steady schedule to eat, sleep.
And
it's routine.
And is some of that because they have been so isolated from their families, there may not be an immediate bridge right back over into the family setting?
Well, part of what I've experienced is, you know, when they create that isolation, there's the shame, and that's what the traffickers use. Is they're using that as that forced criminality to separate the victims from normal society.
Yes.
Yeah. How much, Courtney, does the shame play into trying to recover and regain your life and reconnect with family?
What he's sharing and what everybody shared has resonated so much. Shame is one of the many tactics that traffickers use. And here's the thing, when we get down to human trafficking, it's good and evil. It is literally God and it is the devil. And when I was trafficked, I was literally in the face of pure evil. And they use those lies similar to the enemy to speak shame and guilt and condemnation. But our God is a God of conviction, not condemnation.
And clearly your faith is what pressed you through. On a day-to-day basis, though, what were some of the steps to just sort of feeling safe again and comfortable and saying, this is what's happened to me, and I'm not going, you can't have me back?
That's dang right, for sure. But that is one of the huge things, is isolation as well. So once you've become a shell of a person, and what's so sad, and it's in these music videos, a lot of rappers in the music industry are promoting this, about literally breaking individuals. That's what it's called. And that's what my pimps did to me. They broke me, mind, body, and spirit. It is warfare on your whole soul and body. And the only thing that could have come into place to be able to begin restoring that was my faith in Jesus.
Clearly, clearly.
Can I interject? The reason why stabilization places are so important is because victims are trauma bonded to their traffickers. They are dealing with a complex trauma. And that complex trauma, really, when they go home, parents are not equipped yet to deal with that. And so Stabilization Center is going to really deal with that complex trauma and coping skills that human trafficking victims need to heal.
That's important to point out. So is there sort of a conversation that's happening with the families as well,
Right,
who are preparing to take their sons and daughters back home?
We do. We bring them into our facilities and we provide therapy to the family. So we're able to connect them and bring them back together so they're able to go back home to a stable environment where they're all on the same page.
And Special Agent Jones, I want you to take advantage of the time as well here to talk about what it looks like before we get to this point, sort of on the prevention end. I mean, that we can't know where our teens are all the time and who's connecting with them always, but some signs that, you know, we can look for, that there may be some trouble, that our children may be at risk for this.
Right. And, you know, one of the big things too is just talking to your children. Unfortunately, we have to talk to our kids about what human trafficking is, what can be done. You know, if you send that image to somebody, that's permanent. It's on the internet. That can, you know, and then we'll say that that's being used for blackmail. To, you know, well, if you don't do this, then I'm gonna send this picture that you sent to all your friends. I mean, there's so many different levels and aspects of it. But just being involved with your child, talking to your child, not texting your child. Actually, face-to-face conversation.
Yes. Sit down at this table. Tell me who you're hanging out with. What were they doing?
Is gone. You know, the traditional dinner where you sit down with your family and talk. I mean, everybody's so busy, but just take the time to talk to your kid and say what's going on in their life, what's important to them. Because if you know what's important to them right now, if you see that change, you've got a baseline for this is normal. This is not normal.
This isolation and hiding from us is not normal. Okay, we're going to continue this conversation when we return. We'll be right back.